Woman, her fair hair crowned with leaves, is a silhouette against the rosy shadows of the rocks. The foreground is patterned with small, varicolored mounds, each framing a stylized plant, while at intervals rabbits and other small animals are seen emerging from behind the little mounds. These wild people are outside the clearly defined boundaries of the medieval feudal hierarchy. Their rank and place in society is not shown by the style of their garments. They are clothed, if we may so describe the delicate pattern of which the forms of their bodies are delineated, in soft garments stripped gray, cream, pink, yellow, brown, and green, in a manner to suggest delicately dyed furs. The two wild men who approach the wild woman, one half kneeling as he offers an animal's leg to the woman, an animal's leg, the other slightly bent under the weight of a dead lion on his back. Merely by the angles of their bodies complete the frame and background for the woman with her children, continuing and supporting the rocky hill as the apex of the triangle. The Negro Question, Part 4, The Missing Link, by Lee Cummins. We're back in the book, and it's the same image right here. And he says, I had to slow cropping the image, the tapestry down so that we could retrieve the secrets that are hidden on it. As you can see, the black German soldiers are protecting the black German king, queen, and prince who are looking out of the castle. I have slowed the tapestry down even further on the next page. It says iron arrowhead, iron lookout perches, and bronze horn. All right. Professor Boyd Dawkins, page 6 of this book, The Little Black Basque, brought the knowledge of iron and bronze with them. Look closely at the tip of the arrowhead. It's made of iron. Do a double take and look at the lookout perches. They are made of iron, and the horn appears to be made of bronze. Professor Boyd Dawkins was describing a highly technological black civilization in Europe, not Africa. Again, not Africa. This is Wild Men in the Middle Ages, a study in art, sentiment, and demonology by Richard Bernheimer, Harvard University Press. And real quick, I go to chapter 1, The Natural History of the Wild Man, just to read a little bit about this. This here instead. This book deals with literary and artistic figure whose imaginary character is proved by its appearance. It is a hairy man, curiously compounded of human and animal traits, without, however, sinking to the level of an ape. It exhibits upon its naked human anatomy a growth of fur, leaving bare only its face, feet, and hands, at times its knees and elbows, or the breast of the female of the species. Frequently the creature is shown wielding a heavy club or mace, or the trunk of a tree, and since its body is usually naked except for a shaggy covering, it may hide its nudity under a strand of twisted foliage worn around the loins. Where any characteristics other than these appear, there is a possibility that instead of a wild man, we may be beholding another imaginary figure such as a devil, faun, or satyr. The creature itself may appear without its spur, its club, or its loin ornaments. Any one of its characteristics may be said to designate the species. This strange relative of Homo sapiens, a lively and sometimes pungent commentary on the bestial side of his nature, plays an astoundingly persistent, although on the whole subordinate part in the art and literature of the Middle Ages. But even though the frequency of the wild man's appearance in art and letters is not quite matched by the importance accorded to him in medieval thinking, his ubiquity must be regarded as a sign that he represented a major, if unacknowledged, trend of thought. All right, everybody was talking about this wild man. So is it really myth? His presence is like the running commentary with which a man's half-conscious imaginary accompanies his conscious ideals and aspirations, a reminder that there are basic and primitive impulses clamoring for satisfaction. Medieval literature and art are shot through with the mythology of the wild man. We find him in the clipped verses of French Arthurian romance, in the epics of German minstrel singers, and in the writings of Cervantes and Spenser. The whole vast field of late medieval secular art is his playground, from prints and paintings by Albrecht Dürer and Peter Bruegel to the love caskets and tapestries which medieval swains presented to their ladies, or the tools of chivalry, such as saddles and ornament weapons. His place in medieval daily life was assured by the appearance of his image on stove tiles, candlesticks, and drinking cups, and on a larger scale on house signs, chimneys, and the projecting beams of frame houses. His figures even invaded religious buildings, and in liturgical books, being found on the borders of illuminated manuscripts, on capitals, choir stalls, baptismal fonts, tomb plates, and as a gargoyle on the eaves of churches. Alright, so you see where they found all this. So you see how the wild man is portrayed in all this history, right? And all this art and all these buildings. Is it more than just myth? Once on the facade of a Spanish church, it observed the place which should have been given to the saints, standing full size on the jambs of its main portal. So great then was the ubiquity of the wild man in medieval life, and so wide his acceptance in art, that the question arises what function, individual and social, a figure such as this could have exerted, and what needs it could have satisfied within the framework of medieval civilization. Right, so I wanted to go to page 147, is where they mention the tapestry we're talking about today. And it says here, there are in one tapestry only hairy wild men assailing blackamoors, including a black king and queen, including a black king and a black queen. And I'm going to read from this one real quick. This book is called The Wild Man, Medieval Myth and Symbolism, Timothy Husband, with the assistance of Gloria Gilmore House. A couple of the images here in this book, very interesting. It says here, Wild Man, pen and ink illustration from Ballade de une homme sauvage, France. This is from around 1500. In the introduction of the book, it says here, thought to live in remote, mountainous and forested regions, the wild man especially flourished in the wooded or alpine regions of the German-speaking lands, right? German, right where the tapestry was made, right? Showing these wild men in Germany trying to invade his black king and queen, such as the Harz, Fichtel, and Allgäu mountains of Germany. That's where the legends have them, in these mountains of Germany. The Alpine regions of Carinthia and the Tyrol in Austria, and Graubünden and Wallis in Switzerland. In many such areas, the myths have survived to this day, still celebrated in festivals, masquerades, and dramas. Not limited to these regions, however, the wild man myth thrived throughout Western and Central Europe. In these forests, the wild man was said to make his home in caves, rocky crags, dank burrows, hollows in tree trunks, and other rude places. Occasionally, he fashioned primitive hovels of branches and mud, and 11th century Hessian documents refers to such an abode as a Wilderow Wibu Hus, wild woman house. Toward the end of the 14th century, Heinrich von Hessler states in Die Apocalypse that the wild man lived only in places unfit for human habitation, in fens and woods, in water and in mountains, in caves and in bushes. Alright, and it has all these other languages. Notions of the wild man habitat had changed little by the end of the 16th century, as Edmund Spencer's description, The Fairy Queen, indicates. Just want to go over this image right here before we continue. It says, Wild Man, detail of a manuscript illumination from the Luttrell Psalter, England, from 1335 to 1340. London, the British Library manuscript, alright? This is a photocopy from the 1300s, right? This is all over there, art. You know, how much of a myth is it? By every account, the wild man's behavior matched his primitive surroundings, strong enough to uproot trees. He was violent and aggressive, not only against wild animals, but also against his own kind. What does that sound like? His brutish, contentious nature expressed itself in a natural combativeness against which neither beast nor man was equal, though his club, and sometimes only his bare hands, was his only weapon. With his instinctive knowledge of the ways of wild beasts, The wild man was a skilled hunter, but in spite of his physical supremacy, shrank from contact with humans and frequently even with his own kind. Indeed, his inept social abilities apparently limited him to only that cooperative union required for procreation. Like in agriculture, he was forced to eke out a subsistence from hunting and gathering. Though taught to crawl around on all fours, he scratched tubers and roots from the ground, picked berries and gnawed on verdure. When he killed game, he ate it completely raw. According to Chatrien de Troyes and Vain, by many accounts, the wild man also indulged in cannibalism. By the 16th century, this habit brought him into association with werewolves and other flesh eaters. Wild men were commonly thought to abduct children, but often only to fulfill parental instincts. Instances of wild folk substituting changelings for human children are also recorded. Although he was a hunter, the wild man was frequently hunted. Illustrations of the 14th century depict the wild man on all fours at bay, pursued by hounds and hunters on horseback. Incapable of speech, the wild man muttered only unintelligible sounds or none at all. I want to show some more images here. It says the wild man at bay, detail of manuscripts, illumination from Psalter of Queen of Mary, England, 1300 to 1325. All right, look at that. The wild man, all hairy, dogs going after him. It says here, wild man playing a Rebek Orpheus, wooden bread mold, Switzerland, 16th century. Okay, check it out. Says Nebuchadnezzar cast out among the beast. Nebuchadnezzar, the wild man. Detail of manuscript illumination from the Bible of San Pedro de Roda, about 1000 AD. Look at that, Paris, the wild man. And another one with Nebuchadnezzar cast out. Goes the wild man right here. And I just want to show some in color that they have in this book. Pretty cool images. We got dragons. We got the people with the face chest people. The chest face people, right? Big ear people. And then we got the hairy wild man. All different types of humanoids, all right? Addressing these myths of Middle Ages. Here's another wild man drawing depiction. All right. And you see the wild man got the boars he brought with him to help him fight. It says Alexander in combat with wild men and beasts. Okay, Alexander. And of course, this is the one we're talking about today. This is the German tapestry, right? Showing the black king and queen with their people fighting off the wild man, the pale-skinned wild man. All right. It says here, wild men storming the Moor's castle. Wild men storming who? The Moor's castle. Wild men storming the Moors. So-called Negro people in Germany, right? In a castle. And they're the wild men. This is the other part again of the tapestry we've already talked about. One of them is fighting the lion. The other one's fighting the dragon. And another one's fighting the unicorn. Again, to me, the unicorn and the dragon are the same lion. These are all the lineages, the Khans. Come on, the Drakons, the Amarus, and the Judas. What's going on? A wild woman. Look at this wild woman. She's pale skinned. Wild woman with a unicorn. The wild woman with the dragon. And these are all like wild people. Hairy men right here. Two wild men and two pairs of lovers. And then look at this wood carving. Hairy man, a wild man, it says. Some more paintings right here. The wild man. And look at this one right here. The wild man. Who's the wild man? The wild man. Look at this. On top of a castle, the wild man. And then they depicted King Kong. And more wild men and wild women with a coat of arms. Wild couples supporting the arms of the Grafschaft Kaiberg. Wild men. And wild men on top of the castle. On the wild men storming the Moor's castle and other scenes. Germany, Alsace, Strasbourg. About 1400, all right? Around 1400. Where is it located again? Boston Museum of Fine Arts. From left to right, 5 tall wild men covered with striped woolly body hair and armed with stone sticks, clubs, and fronts attack a castle peopled with small Moors. 2 black defenders in long mantles, one on the near side of the moat and the other on the drawbridge, draw their bows against the aggressors. The Moorish king and queen, both crowned, watch the foray from 2 windows over the castle gate. 4 Moors, one in each turret, brandish weapons or gesticulate, while 4 others watch from the crenellated wall below. The castle stands in a sparse wooded grove. Emerging from the edge of the grove is a stag. In the central section, several wild men with garlands in their hair engage in struggles with various animals. 1 wild man grapples with a rampant lion, raising his club to deliver a blow. 2 other wild men, one with a long pole and another with a club, attempt to kill a basset-like creature, while a 4th engages a unicorn holding its horn in one hand and foreleg in the other. In the right-hand section, a wild woman and 2 children, one seated on her lap and the other at her side, sit in front of the rocky outcropping. The group is approached from both sides by 3 wild men, one on a stag, another with a lion slung over his shoulder, and the third kneeling before her, offering a leg of meat. At the left, The Negro Question, Part 4, The Missing Link, by Lee Cummins. Says the tapestry shows that the whites lived in tree houses and caves. They were basically poor, while the technology and wealth was in the hands of the blacks. If I was focused on race, I would have missed the true treasure that this tapestry possessed. The real treasure on this tapestry is the technology and the civilization of the black German population. We cannot allow ourselves to fall into the pit of hate because of what the New World Order has done in history. We have an obligation, all colors of people, to seek the truth and to teach the truth, no matter how hard it is to swallow. All right, he makes a point there.
We have an obligation, all colors of people, to seek the truth and to teach the truth, no matter how.
This is really scary.
So I did a lecture titled The Moor Science Temple Exposed as well, where I broke down how he took a lot of his information out of the Aquarian Gospel, hence the Circle 7. According to the Aquarian Gospel, was symbolic to Jesus. So when you see that on the Moor Science Temple, you know that's coming from religious rhetoric as well. But Noble Drew Ali took the Quran, which was created by the Ku Klux Klan, and he turned it into the Quran with the K, which is still Turkish. And so when you see Moors, we're the Fez. The Fez is Turkish, okay? And so the term Moor is not ethnic. It does not denote a population of people. It's a derogatory term, okay, that's being used and was created by Germans, okay, and Slavic Europeans, aka Arabs, to negatively denote as a negative denoting term towards black people. So when you hear somebody say Moor, you might as well hear the N-word, okay? And so the word more means stupid, sluggish, dumb. It doesn't mean anything positive. And so for me to give you a perfect example of the way that the word is used, if you ever watched that movie called The Black Knight featuring Martin Lawrence, there's a scene where the white knight comes and he basically sexually harasses the females, and specifically the black female. And when he does, Martin stands up for her. And if you remember, the knight pulls out his sword and he puts it to Martin's face and he says, "Mind your tongue, you Moor, lest I cut it out." And so when he called Martin Lawrence a Moor, he wasn't calling him nothing royal, okay, I can tell you that. And so the movie clearly depicted the understanding and the basis of that word. And so the Moorish Science Temple was not only Freemasonic, you can see it in the Moorish Science Temple newspapers and on a little sovereignty cards. You see the Masonic handshakes, you see the third eye, all of that stuff. They co-opted the Quran from the Ku Klux Klan's Quran, as well as the crescent moon and the star. And the reason I'm bringing them up is because they allegedly practice Islam. And so when you see and you know the Ku Klux Klan's involvement with Albert Pike and becoming Freemasonic, now you can understand the Nation of Islam's involvement with the Ku Klux Klan, because Freemasons get their doctrine from Luciferianism. And so if you know anything about the Knights of Templar, you know that the Knights of Templar are important because they are the ones who allegedly created the Luciferian doctrine during the Holy Crusades. And so if you don't know what the Luciferian doctrine is, long story short, the Luciferian doctrine is basically the belief that Lucifer freed humanity from God by influencing Adam and Eve to use their free will, to which God was trying to keep them from. And so they believe, you know, this is just a quick rundown. They believe that God is really an evil deity and that Lucifer is angelic and that he's a beholder of light. This is why Lucifer always refer to or depict Satan or the devil as an angel. And so, of course, during the Holy Crusades, the Knights of the Templar couldn't just tell the Catholic Church or the church period that they believe now that God was evil. So they say that this is the origins of the formations of secret societies, hence via Freemasons. And so the Knights of Templar is one of the oldest and founding sectors of secret societies. And so that crescent moon and that star is associated with the Baphomet, okay, who was drawn by Eliphas Levi in the 1700s. And so when you see that crescent moon and that star on the Nation of Islam, and you see, you know, Baphomet doing the symbolism, and he got the crescent moon in one aspect and the star on his head, you know, we can start to tie these things together now. And so the reason that I'm making this point is because when you look at the Ku Klux Klan, they practice a Luciferianism in the sectors of Freemasonry. In the original outfit of the Ku Klux Klan was not even a white robe. It was red, black. It was a red, white, and black robe, and it had a crescent moon and a star on it. And so with that being said, when they decided that the black community was going to be infiltrated by all of these Freemasonically controlled organizations, they gave that look and that Islam rhetoric to the black community, and then they put on the white sheets, which have the Celtic cross, which is the cross where all four sides are balanced, and that Celtic cross is actually the cross of the Knights of Templar. It's not even a Christian cross. So I did a
wisdom for today. I just finished this book, right? The Aquarian Gospel of Jesus the Christ. And I just want to give a quick review of my thoughts concerning the book. If you have not read this book and you are a Orthodox Christian, or, you know, someone who follows traditional religion as far as Christianity, you should check this book out. In my opinion, it shows us how self-centered we are as a people. We believe that everything that we have learned is the absolute truth.
Now we want to deal with the Holy Bible in Jesus. Now they call Jesus Christ the morning star. Now notice this hand gesture that you see Jesus Christ doing. Now the hand gesture is called apostolic succession. Now they also refer to Lucifer as the morning star. So why would they refer to Lucifer and the devil as the same name? And why would they refer to Jesus and the devil in the same name? And why every time we see Jesus, he's doing this, and every time we see Baphomet, he's doing this? I'll tell you why, asshole. Because they're the same fucking person. You see the Pope? What is the Pope doing? This. Now this symbol is called apostolic succession. What is apostolic succession? In temporal power. The Pope believes that he is the head of all nations on earth until the one true God returns. We know the Catholic Church is pedophiles. You don't have to debate that. But they're Freemasons, okay? And the one true God is Lucifer. And they rehashed the devil as Satan, okay? Now, I know a lot of y'all don't want to believe that. Let me give you a ritual that all of you niggas do every year. Communion, aka the Eucharist, where you drink the blood and eat the flesh of Christ. That is a cannibalistic ritual. Are you a cannibal? Are you a cannibal? So you are participating in Satanism every time you go to church. The only difference between Christianity and the house of Satan or the church of Satan is the name of the goddamn establishment. There is no difference. Jesus and Lucifer is the same motherfucker. Allah and God is the same motherfucker. Now, let me break this down for y'all a little bit more before I go. They say that the devil would deceive the nations, right? That's what they say. Now, let's prove that God is really the devil. Let's go back to these books. Let's go back to these books. Let's prove that God is really the devil. What did God do? God told the Israelites, and none of this shit really happened. It's all lies to confuse you spiritually. But let's just act like this shit is true. God told the Israelites what? That he would send them a prophet. And that prophet was who? Moses. But apparently, after he told that to the Jews in the Torah, he went to the Christians and he whispered behind the back of the Israelites. And he told the Israelites, he told the Jews, fuck Moses, we gonna send you Jesus. Because Jesus is gonna be the last true prophet. And so he sent niggas Jesus. So now you got Jews who don't respect Jesus and don't acknowledge Jesus because God told them Moses was their prophet. Then you got Christians who don't jack Moses all the way because they believe Jesus is their final prophet until the Messiah returns. Then God snuck his bitch ass over there to the Middle East and told the Arabs, hey, I told them motherfuckers over there Moses and Jesus was going to be the last prophet, but that was a lie because I'm going to send y'all a nigga named Muhammad, and Muhammad is going to be the last prophet. So God told 3 different populations of people that the prophet that they sent to them would be the last prophet. Sounds like somebody deceived the nations to me. Sounds like somebody. So God is the devil. What the fuck don't y'all understand about that? The word Messiah, okay? The word Messiah in Demotic text means must. When you take, because there were no vowels back then. It wasn't even no goddamn English alphabet back then. But just dealing with the lines, okay? If you take the vowels out of the word Messiah, it spells mus, like a snake hiss. The word Messiah literally is the vocal tone of a serpent, okay? The devil is denoted as who? A serpent. So now you might say, Pharaoh, how does this all tie back into Freemasonry? This is why Freemasons tell you they don't care which religion you are. as long as you are one of these three monotheistic religions, because secretly they know the God of every last one of these religions is Lucifer, the serpent who would deceive all the fucking nations. And we know that Lucifer wants to deceive all the nations because Albert Pike wrote a fucking letter in 1871 about how he would deceive all the fucking nations and bring in the New World Order. Thank you very much. I just saved the world. You're welcome. You're fucking welcome.
The entire black race in America is playing into one big ass Masonic ritual. Right. So you niggas gotta wake up. All that, the word pseudo should be buried, period. This shit is real. They not playing. These motherfuckers is doing spells, they doing rituals, they in Hollywood conjuring shit up. Even when you deal with Hollywood. Hollywood comes from the holly tree. It's a tree that's native to Europe called the holly tree. And when you burn it, it makes you hallucinate. So when we talk about Harry Potter, the magic wand, it was made out of Hollywood. Jesus Christ, the throne, wood thorn on his head is Hollywood. Hollywood makes you hallucinate. So Hollywood helps to put these actors and these rappers out, like Brother Pill said, sold you out, to help you play into this giant Masonic ass monopoly game. So when we talking about black liberation and revolution, motherfucker, Martin Luther King is dead. He ain't gonna help you do that. Okay? Let's just be real. We talking about today. You need to get with some up-to-date science so that we can fight back, not just physically, but spiritually. Because you're dealing with somebody who has learned you better than you because he made you forget who the fuck you are. I don't give a fuck if you got wings. If I never teach you how to fly, I'll put you in a tree, you'll never fly. So it don't matter if you got melanin, it don't matter if you got a pineal gland, it don't matter about your neuromelanin nerve tract, it don't matter about the neurological system and all of your DNA be coded in melanin. It don't matter because you don't understand how to exercise or exert yourself. So when we're dealing with the presidency, we know it's a game, but you gotta understand, it's a Masonic game predicated upon astrology, which is meant to extract energy from African people and cause us to use our pineal glands to manifest the reality according upon what we expect. Because what you don't understand is the universe is holographic. Your life is manifested, predicated upon your psychology and your internal conjuring of your, which is called the emotions. So emotionally, we believe that white supremacy is an actual fact. So black people around America collectively manifest a reality that we are oppressed. Right. When if we would just get the fuck out of the goddamn fear box, okay, and get into astrology, then we can start using it on our side to manifest a reality to where that don't exist. Right. Here's the science. Every slave that thought he was a slave stayed a fucking slave. Every slave that thought he wasn't a slave, he fought and got free. Now what's the importance? Every slave that got free used what to get free? Astrology. That was the only friend they motherfucking had. Okay? So put yourself there. You in the woods, you in the land where everybody want to kill you. It's like real life manhunt. Yeah. Every slave that got away using astrology. Okay? So this shit is not a game. If you in a fish tank and I come sprinkle some goddamn chemicals in there, it's going to affect the fish. The world is our fish tank. This is our atmosphere. We're the fish. The stars, the planets, sprinkle gases down this bitch every day, according to our 9 planets that affect us. So when you watch TV shows, movies, the times and the days that they come out are relevant. Okay? They don't just make shit on accident. Next time a movie come out, and it might be some under shit, some Kevin Hart shit. Look at the month, look at the day, look at the time, and apply it, and just go see where the planet's gonna be on that day.
Now you got 8 different blood types, right? You have O negative, O positive, A negative, A positive, B negative, B positive. Then you got AB negative and AB positive. So you got 4 different blood type variations on the negative side. You got 4 different blood type variations on the positive side, which gives you a total of 8. Now with that being said, let's deal with the origin of blood types. First of all, blood types, only one is natural and original. That's the O negative blood type. Now I'm gonna break down the origins of the blood types before I tell you the effects and the types of people that can have these blood types. Now, the O negative blood type comes from the African black woman, which you would call the mitochondrial Eve gene. Now, why is this important? Mitochondrial DNA is DNA that exists outside the nucleus of a cell. Once DNA becomes coiled up in the nucleus of a cell, it's called a chromosome. So let's break down. Let's get that understood first. Now, why is this important? Because all non-Africans don't have the mitochondrial Eve gene DNA. Listen, I'm gonna say it. I say it all the goddamn time. I'm gonna say it again. If you are non-African, you are not 100% human being. You are only 93% human being and 7% Neanderthal. Now, why is this important? Because only human beings, aka Africans, have the mitochondrial Eve gene. All non-Africans get their mitochondrial DNA from Neanderthals, aka primates, aka monkeys. So we do not have the same cellular, biological, or genealogical makeup or physiological composition as any other organisms on the planet. Now, with that being said, this breaks down the origins of the blood types, which it is confirmed by science that Neanderthals introduced infected genes into our genetic structure as Africans. Go look it up. So with that being said, the A blood type and the B blood types are antigens. Go look up what an antigen is. And these antigens produce antibodies that literally cause a blood infection within the circulatory system of African people. So when they say you're Rh positive, Rh is literally a medical term that is used to denote rhesus monkey, which is an actual monkey. Go look it up. So being Rh positive is like being HIV positive. It means you have it. So now, why is this important? Rh positive, rhesus monkey blood, comes from Caucasians and all non-Africans. So the A antigen comes from dogs and the B antigen comes from monkeys. Now remember, African people, we do not have the same genealogical structure as Caucasians or Asians or any non-African. So when you go look up the genealogical components that compose a Caucasian, you'll see that they share 98% of their DNA with chimp and another percentage of their DNA with wolf. So this is where you get the A antigen and the B antigens from. And these antigens produce antibodies that literally break down the protein within the blood of African people when you have sex with them. This is a process done that's called red blood cell hemolysis, which I broke down what red blood cell hemolysis is in detail in my interrelational dating part 2 video. So with that being said, I'm not doing it now. Now getting back onto the subject, when African people were not sexually reproducing with non-African people, we were all O negative. We were all from the mitochondrial Eve gene. Okay? This is why they say in the Bible, everybody's a descendant of Eve. They're talking about the gene, the African woman. Now, when you look up the time marker in regards to the when A and B antigens manifested on the planet Earth, you'll see they manifested approximately 6,000 years ago. Now, why is this important? This is the same motherfucking time Europeans and every other race came to manifest themselves physiologically on this planet. So the A and B blood types were introduced to the African by non-Africans. And these are blood infections which cause you to suffer from red hemolytic disease during pregnancy. So I also break down hemolytic disease in my interracial dating video part 2. Go watch it. But we stand on the blood types here. This is why only certain blood types can give to certain blood type. This is why O negative can only take from an O negative, but yet O negative can give to everybody because of genetic engineering. Now, with that being said, continuing on, blood types are denotions of origin. Now, when you're African today and you go to the doctor and they say you got an O in the blood type and a B blood or a B blood type, this doesn't mean you're Caucasian. Because after this, I'm doing a matter of fact, I'm gonna get it in now. Fuck it. You cannot have Caucasian in your family tree. Okay? You can't. There's no way. Now, when you look it up and all this ancestry.com and they be like your great grandfather is white, no. Well, you cannot. Listen. The European mitochondrial DNA comes from animal DNA. That DNA can never override the original genetic coding of the mitochondrial Eve gene. It can affect it though. It can cause infections. Okay? And this is where you see people coming out with the Rh positive monkey blood. that just means your blood is infected. It does not mean you're Caucasian. Two Caucasians can never give birth to an African, but an African can never give birth to a Caucasian, as I already broke down. Why? Because they're Neanderthal. We are not Neanderthal. We don't give them those genes. They don't give us those genes. Evolution theory is a goddamn lie. So now why is this important? When people keep saying, I got white in my family. No, you don't. You have somebody who integrated into your family and affected your bloodline. And then when we want to go deeper into the bloodline, you get your DNA and your blood passed down from your mother. So if your mother, as I broke down in my interrelational dating part 2 video, again, go watch it. If your mother is black, you're African blood. You are African blood. If your mother is white, then you are more so influenced by European bloodline, which means that you have been, for the most part, cut off from your original bloodline. So now when we see a lot of us, that's A and B blood type and this, that, and the third, that's because somewhere in history, one of our coon-ass grandfathers went and had sex with a white woman, and they cut us off from our original bloodline, and now we have become infected on the means of circulatory, on the level of the circulatory system, and become not descendants, but let's say diagnosed with the blood infection. So now we've been, to a certain extent, cut off from certain genetic memories and cellular memories of our ancestors, because at some point in time, our grandmother was no longer black. So now I broke down the science to this in my interrelational dating video part 2. Go watch it. I'm not going into it again. Now, with that being said, let me give you an example. It's a fact that your DNA stores all phenomena that you experience, as well as spiritual and mental, psychological understanding that you experience in your DNA, and you pass that down to your grandchild. So if I'm a black woman and I pass that down to my daughter, and then my daughter has some kids and she passed that down to her civilization, and that civilization, all the daughters of that civilization have another African civilization, and they pass that down. All of these civilizations now have the previous memories, and cellular memories of their predecessor civilization, of their grandparent civilization. Now, one of these niggas in this civilization go straight the fuck off and go fuck with a non-African. Now, their offspring has a tad bit of his genetic memory, which he retained from his civilization, but the majority of the cellular and genetic memory information that the child retains is coming from the mother. So now this mulatto child, or Chinese or non-African, because you might have a baby with a Chinese person or whatever Neanderthal you don't want to have a child with. This child has probably 20 to 30% African cellular makeup, memory, and 70% non-African. So now this 70% also has the intel with the blood, because your memory is stored in your blood. Your DNA is in your blood. Just like on a crime scene, they come, you bleed, they get in your DNA. So with that being said, now this is where the A and B antigens come in, because you get your bloodline passed down from your mother. So if he was O negative and everybody was O negative, he just strayed his ass off and went to the Caucasus Mountains and had a baby by somebody that's A or B positive or negative. Then now that child may come out mulatto. That child may come out with a tad bit African cellular memory. It may have some connection to its original family to a certain extent, but it now carries the bloodline of the oppressor, because you get your bloodline from your mother. So if you have a child by a non-African, that child will carry the bloodline of that non-African, if the non-African is anything other than O negative. Now you might say, Pharaoh, well, how is this some white people that's O negative, or this, that, and the third that's O negative? Because all non-Africans were genetically engineered. This is a motherfucking fact, whether you believe it or not. So that being said, of course some of them are going to contain the original blood, because they not only they've been genetically engineered by extraterrestrials, which carry an O negative bloodline, aka Illuminati 13 world bloodline families, but they did the same shit we did. Some of them white men come over here, have babies with our black women in the past, and they've come out mulattoes that are O negative, and the mulattoes went back to white people and had babies who now carry the O negative bloodline. So we've been swapping bloodlines, okay? We've been swapping bloodlines. There's only one royal bloodline, and that's us, and that has been usurped and hijacked by the Europeans, to now, to which today you call the Illuminati who carry the royal bloodline, but we're the African people were the original bloodline. So they have usurped us genetically and biologically from our planet and our land. This is why when you go to any civilization in the world, you can find African people was there first, but we're not there now. Now you got 8 different blood types.